Greetings of the day, my dear friends. This is Chax once again simplifying a new area, a new dispute. This time, this is on the Senkaku or the Diaoyu Islands, depending on whose side of the divide you are, the Japanese or the Chinese. This is a set of five uninhabited islands and three rocks in the East China Sea. The largest of these islands is 4.3 square kilometers in area, the smallest just about 800 square meters. These were called the Pinnacle Islands by James Colnett, who charted them during his voyage on board the Argonaut in 1789 to 1791. Senkaku, really speaking, is a loose translation of pinnacle in Japanese, used for the first time in the year 1900. These islands are located approximately 330 kilometers from mainland China, 140 kilometers from Taiwan, 192 kilometers from Japan, right? And the dispute is essentially between China and Japan and Taiwan and Japan. Underlying this dispute is the age old dispute between China and Taiwan, and China, really speaking, claims Taiwan as its own territory. The Taiwanese don't agree to that, but that's another story. Historically, the Chinese claim that they discovered this island and maintained control because, hey, you'll hear me right when I say they used them as navigation markers when they were transiting to the Ryukyu Islands. The Ryukyu Islands are with Japan. Japan actually maintained physical possession of these islands from 1895, that is when the first Sino-Japanese War took place, till its surrender post the Second World War. In 1900, a Japanese entrepreneur actually bought three islets and one rock and started a fish processing plant here, employing 200 people. He got permission from the Japanese government of the time. This business failed and he sold these islands to the Kuhihara family. Till 1972, the US administered these islands as a part of the treaty between US and Japan post Japanese surrender. In 1972, these islands reverted to Japan after the Okinawa Reversion Agreement between US and Japan. From 2002 to 2012, the Japanese government actually paid the Kuhihara family a sum of 25 million yen a year to rent three of the islets, an undisclosed sum to use a rock which was called the Kuba, and Kuba was used by the US military and the US Air Force as a place where they could use practice bombing runs. And on the 11th of September 2012, the Japanese government purchased these four islets from the Kuhihara family for 2 billion yen. Really speaking, in that way, these islands were under Japanese possession in the recent past. So why the dispute at all? Where is the problem? The problem essentially is a discovery of oil and gas in 1968 in the seabed of the East China Sea. Till 1972, nobody raised a squeak, essentially because these islands were administered by the US. The moment they reverted to Japan is when both China and Taiwan started making their presence felt. From the year 2006, vessels from China and Taiwan have been regularly entering these waters and trying to make a presence of their own and creating a dispute where probably none existed till then. These incursions were generally accompanied by a number of protesters who were also escorted there by the Taiwanese Coast Guard. Naturally, as a reaction, Japanese fishing vessels also started entering and maintaining a presence here. In July 2010, Japanese fishing boats started making their possession felt of these islands, and on the 7th of September, a Chinese trawler collided with two Japanese Coast Guard boats. The Japanese boarded this trawler and arrested the captain of the trawler. In July 2012, Coast Guard vessels actually escorted a bunch of protesters from Taiwan, and one of them collided with a Japanese trawler. In September 2012, 75 Taiwanese fishing trawlers were escorted by 10 Taiwanese Coast Guard vessels. They clashed, naturally, with the Japanese Coast Guard vessels, fired water cannons at each other, flashed lights, blared on loudspeakers to announce their respective claims to the island. Now, what happens between China and Japan? In 2012, China and Japan decided that they should jointly work on the oil fields of the East China Sea. But, oh yes, there is a but, and these buts are there in plenty. In 2013, China created an aircraft identification zone over the islands. This zone was obviously overlapping the Japanese ADIS. Right? In February 2013, a Chinese frigate locked a weapons targeting radar onto a Japanese destroyer and a helicopter on two separate occasions. On both occasions, the Japanese destroyer came to battle stations. In March 2016, Japan commissioned a radar station on one of these islands. And on 12th of August 2016, a Chinese fishing vessel collided with a Greek freighter and sank. This fishing vessel was a part of a massive Chinese fishing fleet of over 300 vessels which entered these islands and was stationed in these islands for over 15 days prior to the collision. So, is there going to be a thaw, or is there a thaw right now? Frankly speaking, this issue really highlights the aggressive muscular posture which the Chinese have taken in the recent past, especially to maintain their claims in the South China Sea and now the East China Sea. Therefore, both Japan and the US are very wary of the Chinese designs. However, in November 2017, the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and Chinese President Xi Jinping decided that they must have a new start to their bilateral ties. In October 2018, Shinzo Abe visited Beijing. This was the first official visit by a Japanese leader for over 7 years. Sadly, no resolution of the dispute happened. In October 2018, the US and Japan conducted their largest ever war games throughout Japan and its surrounding waters, and many believed that this was preparing for a response in case of a possible Chinese incursion in any of the islands. So, what happens next? On one hand, you have the Chinese incursions increasing both in number of times, the type of vessels, and the number of vessels. On the other hand, these islands are a political landmine. Domestically, for both the sides, that is China and Japan, they are like a fish bone stuck in the gullet. Neither can you spit it out, nor can you swallow it. the passions have been raised internally on both sides. Internationally, they are a part of an ongoing positional game which is on between China and Japan. And very obviously, neither side can be seen as making a concession onto the other for the other. China is trying its best to drive a wedge between the US and Japan alliance, trying to appeal to the US and saying, hey, we want to resolve the dispute and we want your help. Why don't you ask Japan to become a little more magnanimous and leave its claim? However, is Japan responding? No. The US and Japan, along with India and Australia, have created the Quad as a means of restricting Chinese influence over the South China Sea essentially, but can be seen to extend into the East China Sea. Therefore, we are in for interesting times. Thank you very much, my dear friends. Thank you for viewing my video. And as always, I look forward to your comments, your suggestions, and please share this video. Like it. Thank you very much. Have a great day.